Hello, I'm here with Matt Hale from Rising Tide. Matt and I have known each other a few years now, so it's really good to be reconnected again. I'd really like if you could tell us a little bit about your practice, Max. I know you're based in Melbourne at the moment, but be really interested in your practice. Who's your typical client?
Hey Lex, thanks for having me, and it's great to reconnect. I agree. Um, Rising Tide's based in Melbourne. We're currently all working offline at the moment, as we've been doing for the last 18 months. We're primarily a financial planning and lending business, and our what we'd say is our bread and butter clients are sort of in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, but primarily people who are happy to engage digitally, and those that want an opportunity to have someone guide them through the advice process without us making all the decisions for them. So we want someone who's busy enough to want some help and need some help, but doesn't want to hand everything off to us. We want them to own their decisions.
How do you help them own those decisions? Because, I mean, you said your clients are 30s, 40s, and 50s, so there must be different levels of, financial knowledge there.
Yeah, the key things that we start with are actually trying to understand people's journey with their money, particularly with couples. That's really different because even though you meet at a certain period of time, you've often got a whole lot of history in a whole raft of areas before you meet. So trying to bring people into an environment where they can have a really good conversation. We then move on to values and understanding what's important to people, and that flows really clearly onto the goals. For us, if we can't get a good connection with people to articulate their goals, we know that it's not going to be a fruitful relationship for them or us.
It's interesting you said that because I mean, I have a financial advisor, and I think at times I've almost end up in massive barneys with my husband as the advisor's been asking certain questions, and I'm sure you've seen that.
Yeah, I think we call it probing.
That's great. Listen, have you seen much of a change in your client base over the years? And yeah, I think the industry's been for a bit of a tumultuous time as well. Be really interested in if you've seen changes over that period.
Yeah, we've seen, I'd say, a basic increase in the level of financial knowledge of our clients. And I put that down to more accessible, collateral. People like the Barefoot Investor and Glenn James and My Millennial Money. There's some really good stuff out there which helps them to build up their brand and their knowledge. For us, what we've also learned is that we don't necessarily deal well with all people. So in financial planning, the one thing that we profess to our clients is that we're going to be wrong. And that's because we don't have a crystal ball. And for some people, that is too much of a bridge to climb, to go into something where they're going to put their hard earned time, effort, money into a process and find out that it's not going to be perfect.
I think that's interesting. You are going to be wrong. There's no doubt about that. So it's good to get it out there. So you are part of the AMP family of advisors. Um, I'd be really interested in what you look for from us and similarly what you don't want from us.
Yeah, Lex, it's a really interesting question. What we look for is continuity, consistency, and delivering on your promise. And I actually look at it similarly to what our clients want from us. I don't think anyone expects AMP or an advisor to have the silver bullet on what success is. But what we want from you is to do the grunt work with things like legislation and policy and that type of thing, and then bring it back to us in a simple way. The second part of it is to help us reduce our cost to serve. That's the biggest change that's happened in my sort of 15 years. Gone are the days of putting advice in place, 2 or 3 days after a session, the SOA signed, applications lodged. It is a longer, more robust process now, but it costs more for us, and that flows on to clients.
Yeah, and I think that's something the whole industry's focused on now. It's been a few years of rapid change, right? And I think we all want to be able to make advice more accessible. So I think that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, absolutely. The final piece for us is actually just trying to help us avoid the really big pitfalls. And once again, I take it back to the client advisor relationship. I don't see that the advisor or you as a licensee are responsible for my actions and our business's actions. But I think there's an incumbent need for good coaching on how we can improve.
Oh, it's nice to hear that. And I hope we're going to be able to provide that. What's the most rewarding part of your job as an advisor?
The most rewarding part of my job is seeing clients become really connected to their money, helping them to articulate their goals in a way that they've probably never done. And then, the icing on the cake is when they achieve them. For us, I look at it the equivalent with food and with fitness. I think money falls into the same category. And it's often, doing the food diary for a week is the thing that scares people the most. But there's some amazing apps out there. There's good technology. Nearly every bank has it. So
Yeah.
it. What I always say is, and I preach this: take a roster day off for yourself once every 6 months, and do a really good review of your last couple of months of expenses. Check your direct debits, and then reward yourself afterwards. Whether that be with a good bottle of wine, or if you're in Sydney or Melbourne at the moment, Uber Eats delivered. But reward yourself for doing that hard work. And what you'll find is when you rip the band-aid off, it's often not as bad as what you expected.
I think that is one fantastic piece of advice for our customers, and we might end on that note. So thank you very much, Matt.
Thanks for having me, Lex.